In today's video, I'm going to talk about the dark web. What is the dark web? Why should it matter to you? And what you need to start paying attention to, because cyber criminals are starting to use the dark web to not only impact businesses, but to scam individuals just like you. What's up, everyone? I'm Brian from Exact IT Solutions. I am a cybersecurity expert, and I am here to teach you today about all things dark web. Let's start off with understanding that there are essentially three pieces of the web that you know of. There's the surface web, there's the deep web, and there's the dark web. So I'm going to touch on all three of these here in the beginning of the video, just so you understand what the differences are and what you need to know about these different areas of the internet that exist today. So the first one up that we have to talk about is the surface web. The surface web is the visible web, or the web that you know of today. The clear web, as they call it. It consists of websites that are data and indexed by search engines like Google, Bing, Yahoo, all the ones that you're familiar with. And it's part of the internet that most people use and know today. It's all your favorite websites, from social media to shopping sites, and it's the most accessible area of the internet. We do it through web browsers using computers or smart devices. It doesn't require a lot of configuration or any special knowledge to access this freely open part of the web. The surface web is estimated to be only a fraction of the full internet, combining both the deep web and the dark web. So what's the deep web? Let's talk about that. So the deep web refers to the portion of the internet that's not indexed by standard search engines, and therefore the information on those sites is not readily available through regular search queries. These can include things like private databases that companies own, government record databases, secure personal accounts like email, online banking, and health services, subscription-based platforms, academic journals. The deep web is much larger than the surfacing web, encompassing a vast amount of data that is mostly hidden from the general public for reasons of privacy, security, or because it requires specific credentials to access. So think of if your doctor or your healthcare provider's electronic medical records is available to you through an app on your phone or through the internet, but you have to log in to see that, and it's not something that's freely available to the general public. That is what we're talking about here when it comes to the deep web. The deep web is typically password protected or hidden behind something and requires a level of authentication in order to see the data behind it. But this part of the web is a significant portion of the data that exists out there today. And then the final piece that we need to talk about today, and the main part of this video, is the dark web. So the dark web is a small, intentionally hidden section of the deep web that has been deliberately kept anonymous and inaccessible to standard web browsers. Access to the dark web is typically achieved through specific software such as the Onion router, or more commonly known as Tor, or I2P, which is the Invisible Internet Project. And these things anonymize user identities and locations when they access things. And why this is important is because on the surface web, or on the deep web, a lot of times when you log into things or you access certain things or you make a purchase, it records certain information about your computer. And the whole point of the dark web is to anonymize who you are, and what you're accessing cannot really tell where you're coming from. And this is done through a couple different mechanisms that I'm going to talk about today. But the dark web is known for also hosting a variety of services, both legal and illegal. It offers a degree of privacy and anonymity, as I mentioned, not available on the surface web, which can be crucial for whistleblowers, activists, and those under oppressive regimes. However, it is also notorious for illicit activities, including the sale of drugs, weapons, stolen data, and other illegal services like hacking and ransomware as a service and stuff like that. So let's talk about some key differences between the surface web, deep web, and dark web. So first off, accessibility. The surface web is easily accessible through standard web browsers and search engines. knowledge, whereas the deep web requires specific credentials or direct knowledge of URLs for access, while dark web requires special software like Tor for access. It gets a little bit more difficult to access these sites than your typical surface websites. So if you're thinking that your regular Google browser is going to cause you to stumble upon a dark website, that's not really how this works. The other piece that's significantly different between the three is the content. Surface web contains indexed, publicly available content, where the deep web hosts private, secure content that you don't want falling in the hands of the public. It's not meant for public indexing or public consumption. And the dark web, that offers anonymous, often illicit content alongside legitimate uses. The purposes of these three different levels of the web are pretty clear. The surface web serves the general public's information and services that are needed to provide public information, whether that be through private companies or through governments or through news sources. That's ultimately what the surface web is for. It's for indexing, it's for being able to do research and find information. The deep web is created to ensure privacy, to ensure security for sensitive information. And the dark web, well, that's designed to provide anonymity and a platform for both legal and illegal activities outside the scope of conventional law enforcement and internet governance. There's a big difference between these three different levels because the dark web, because it provides this anonymous platform for people to do certain things, doesn't really make it difficult for law enforcement to do its job, unlike the surface web where they can figure out who you are pretty quickly. So as I mentioned, you're not going to stumble upon any dark web website using your standard Chrome or Edge browser on your computer, but if you wanted to get on the dark web, how would you do that, right? What do you need to do? Well, accessing the dark web requires specific tools and also some precautions to maintain anonymity and ensure your own safety. Remember, there's hackers all over the dark web, setting up websites, setting up different scams and places where you can easily get infected with malware if you're not protecting yourself the right way. I wouldn't advise doing this if you don't know what you're doing, and I'm just going to provide a high-level discussion of what's involved. And at the end of the day, go on the dark web at your own risk. But the main things you're going to need to set up for accessing the dark web are an onion router and a virtual private network. And we're going to talk about why you're going to want to use a VPN here in a second. But let's talk about the first thing I mentioned, which is the onion router. Also known as Tor, it's a free open source software that enables anonymous communication by directing internet traffic through a worldwide volunteer operated network consisting of more than 7,000 relays. The purpose of Tor is to conceal users' location and usage from anyone conducting network surveillance or traffic analysis. Using Tor makes it more difficult to trace internet activity to the user, including visits to websites, online posts, instant messages, and other communication forms. So if you really want to maintain your anonymous stature, this is one way you can try to do it. Although everything I just rattled off there, unless you do certain things the right way, you can be found out at the end of the day. One of the things you need to do is make sure you install your Tor browser, and then you also want to make sure that you have proper settings on that browser so you can access different sites throughout the dark web. Different security settings may prevent you or reveal some of your information to somebody who hosts a site inside of the dark web. Websites on the dark web typically use the .onion domain, which is, like I said, not accessible through standard browsers. You can now use Tor browser to access these onion sites. It's crucial to navigate to trusted sources, as I mentioned, as the dark web can host potentially harmful content. And then while Tor provides a high level of anonymity, you must use a VPN in conjunction with Tor. And you just want to do this because it adds an extra layer of privacy and security to your computer and your browsing. The VPN encrypts your internet traffic and routes it through a server in a location of your choice. You can purchase a VPN service, or if you have the know-how, you can set up your own VPN server and manage that yourself. One of the things that the VPN is going to do is mask your IP address of your computer and your internet and potentially tracing it back to your house or city that you live in. Protecting your data from being read by third parties is also one of the benefits of using a VPN, and it also will mask who your internet service provider is, so they really can't narrow down who you are by figuring out what internet provider you're using. A couple things that you want to remember and some tips that I'll give you around VPN type stuff. Choose a reputable VPN provider or set up your own. Connect to a VPN server before launching the Tor browser. If you decide that you want to access the dark web, make sure that VPN is up and running before you fire up your browser, and launch the Tor browser with the VPN connection active. Open the Tor browser and proceed to access the dark web once you have that VPN connected. So be aware of the legal and security risks associated with accessing the dark web. Some of the activities and content on the dark web are illegal, and it can expose you to serious risks, including malware, phishing, cyber attacks, among other things. Make sure that you practice privacy and security, employ good privacy and security practices. Make sure you use strong, unique passwords for the different sites if they require them. This doesn't change for any of the webs, the surface web, the deep web, or the dark web. This is all good advice for all those areas. Make sure you have two-factor when available, and be cautious about sharing your personal information, especially on the computer that you use to access the dark web. Definitely recommend considering using a separate computer or setting up what's known as a virtual machine to do activities like visit the dark web. And stay informed. Watch channels like this. Remember to like and subscribe to our channel. If you have any questions about the dark web or anything, drop them in the comments below. But make sure you regularly update your knowledge about cybersecurity, the threats, and how to mitigate them, so you know what to look out for when you do things like if you decide you want to go on the dark web. The landscape of online security is constantly evolving. What I put in this video today might not be true in 6 months. So staying informed and staying vigilant is the key to maintaining your own safety when you're visiting things like the dark web. Carefully using Tor and a VPN, users can access the dark web with a high degree of anonymity and security. Sometimes you have to do it for security research purposes. A lot of times hackers set up what's known as dark web leak sites and start to leak company information, potentially yours, or the information that they steal, potentially yours, say from your doctor's database, and that can all end up on the dark web. And maybe one day you want to visit the dark web and see if your information is really out there, which you can certainly do. And I would highly recommend that if you're interested enough and you want to educate yourself on how to securely access the dark web, you do so and you learn how to look for ways to look for your information that might be out there. I'm Brian, I'm with IT Solutions. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, remember to like and subscribe to the channel. And I'll do a couple more videos on the dark web. There's a lot to cover here. I don't want to make this video too long. So look for those videos, and I appreciate your support, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.